structure
This
also.
conference will now be recorded.
How does the investigation start? You have started at the top, and then does the request contain sufficient information to start the process? So we have collected data, extracted data, and then we have to put a question: do we have X? Do we have sufficient information to go with the proceeding, to go with the investigation process? If that is not the case, we'll have to collect the data. Data collection process has to be extraordinarily well. So put a question: do we have sufficient data? If no, then coordinate with the requester. Who is the requester? The company who has given, or the agency which has asked. That is in your material. I have given you. You can go through. I'm reading each step, step by step. Doesn't matter. It's okay. Right? Let me check whether I can do now. Is it audible now? Is my voice is audible? I clear now? I'm not able to see the chat box. Please type in chat box if you are able to listen. Okay, it's breaking, is it? It's not. It's breaking. Let me help you. Just don't worry regarding this thing. So I can share the you can listen. Fine. Yeah. I'm trying because power has been disconnected. There is no power supply. That's why I have let me proceed. Okay. So, excuse me for the problem. Right. We'll proceed. So once we extract the data, first question we put is the data sufficient? Are we confident that we can proceed with investigation? If no, then coordinate with the investigator. Investigator has to coordinate with the team which has asked for the investigation process and then take advice from them. Next, if yes, if you are confident that there is a lot of data and sufficient data to do investigation process, set up the set up the process, set up the investigation process. Prerequisites, preliminaries are to be done. That means including a diary of the investigator, including the investigator's diary. Everything is to be set in red. There will be hardware tools like screwdrivers, nuts, bolts, everything will be there in the kit, apart from software and hardware. The investigation or forensic investigation has not been limited, is not limited to only the data verification, because sometimes it may be necessary that you open the cabinet, you have to have everything. So for that purpose, the kit is not confined to only software tools. Both hardware and software tools also are required. Set everything in order, ensure that everything is there, and then you proceed further. Second thing, duplicate every data and verify integrity of forensic data. Duplicate the data. That means when you collect the data, as we discussed earlier in the class, when we collect the data, the first thing that is to be done, the original is to be preserved. The original is to be preserved. And a copy is to be made, and this copy is to be certified by a judge. The investigator should not keep in custody of the data. It should be in the custody of the judge. So original is to be taken, certified, got it certified by the judge in the court of law, make a copy of it, and that copy is to be used for verification purposes, investigation purposes. But before that, integrity of data is to be checked. How it is to be done, we will see. That we study now. Right? If integrity is okay, organize, refine forensic request and select forensic tools. Now once the data is ready, it is verified to be correct, Then what is to be done? The process of investigation shall start. Now, various possibilities are possible here. Maybe the data you are seeking is not relevant to the case. So what do you do in that case? So that is what is refining here. So extract the data requested, extract the data that is pertinent to the investigation purpose, and add extracted data to the prepared and extracted data list. So what you are doing some kind of filtering here. Filter the data and take the required data and put it in separate list. Still you have not investigated, still you have not started with the investigation process. These are all prerequisites. And then mark data search lead, proceed on data search lead list. Here what happens is that, is there more data to be searched? What does it mean is that when you are investigating, some data may give lead to another data. For example, when you are checking the hard disk, you find the data, but you see that the latest update, last update of the data was done some time back, and the data is missing. When you go to registry, you will find that pen drive was used. For example, when you open Word document, you see, open the Word document, go to file, open, a list of files that you have recently used will be appearing. Among that, you click on the second file or third file or first file, whichever you are interested. You find that it is interesting for the investigation purposes. Then it is not openable. What is the reason? The drive could not be found. Now you get to know that that file was updated not on the hard disk but in the pen drive or any other auxiliary memory device which cannot be located at this point of time. Now what is happening? This data which you have investigated is giving lead to another data item. So take the data item and add to the list and go for identification purposes. And this process goes on continuously. This process goes on continuously. Right? This process goes on continuously until all the data is collected. Now we go back to our flowchart. This is the second flowchart that I take is before we go to now we'll take another one, the process of investigation. Fine. See here again, I'll zoom it for your convenience purposes. What are the steps to be involved in investigation purposes? This flowchart is representative of entire third unit that we are discussing here. Okay. So is there data for analysis? More data analysis needed? Now what is asked actually here is who and what. Who or what application created? Who means the person who used it. And second one, what means what application was used and when it was created, when it was edited, when it was modified, when it was sent to someone, when it was received, when what has caused the file to be. Who is this item linked to and identified with? So for whom it is created, to whom it is sent. Now various entities are coming into here. Next, another question that is asked. Where was it found? Where did it come from? That means, is it in the local hard disk? Was it from somewhere else like email or internet downloaded? So what is the source of this data is the question asked. Next, what is the time? When was it created? When what is it accessed? When was it modified? When was it received, sent, viewed, deleted and launched? Now it also shows, it also tells when was a link established. Does it have link to any other events? Any other events? That means linked activities are to be sent. For example, I send an image to you. Now what do you do when you receive an image through email? You download it. That is one activity. Having downloaded, you open it. Open it with which? A paint or a picture viewer, something. So there is another linked application. Now this link between email, attachment sent, and your opening of an appropriate image viewing tool will establish link between new application that is used, and that may lead, if you have modified, that may lead to additional data. That's how the extension takes place. Next, how did it originate on the media? That means, where was, as I said, what is the source? How was it created, transmitted, modified, and used? Does it show how relevant events occurred? Does it give any link to other events? Next, associated artifacts and metadata. Register entries. Artifacts means various other sources and various other tools and techniques that are used. Next, what is the information about this activity called as metadata? Where do you see them? You can see in the Windows application, like when you take a file and go for properties, metadata in the Windows, it will show more details than what you have created, what changes you have made actually, right? Like number of words, number of letters, number of white spaces, who is the owner, who created, was it shared, kind of things. Next, system logs will give you information about what was done with this file or data. Registry entries will be there pertaining to what you have done with this data. All these are called as artifacts and metadata. And other connections. Do the above artifacts and metadata suggest links to any other items or events? As I said, when you open a file with another application, so there is a link. What other correlating or corroborating information is there about the item? Corroboration means you have got a data item, but you are to ensure that an equivalent activity occurred other side also, which corroborates it. Corroborating means confirming the activity. So two events pertaining to one incident have to corroborate. The second one has to support the first one. This is called as corroborating evidence. For example, in a murder case, suppose it is found that a person is stabbed to death. The knife is confiscated. The knife used for murdering is taken. The handprints, fingerprints on the knife are the corroborating evidence of having used the knife. So it will establish that this tool was used for murder and that person used it. This is called as corroboration. So corroboration evidence. What did the user do with the item? Was it a passive attack, active attack? What was the intention of the culprit in using this information? So identify any other information that is relevant to the forensic request. That means what happens? We'll see in a detail. We'll see. For now, we'll postpone it. Other information we'll see. Use timeline and other methods to document findings, analysis results list. Now, what is a sequence? Timeline here means what is the sequence of activities that occurred. So all these we are going to see. In fact, this third chapter, these flow charts, these two flow charts will help you understanding the third unit completely. Now from here we come to, if item or discovered information can generate new data search leads, document new leads to data search lead list. Now you have taken a data that it shows that it is going to help you in investigation further. That also needs, then add that data also. But you cannot do arbitrarily. You have to take permission. What is that permission? We will see here now. So this is how we proceed now. I have made this mind map of all the units. I'll share with you also. And this will be very easy for your information. This is made using a tool called MindX. XMind, XMind is a tool. You can freely download this to open this application, and it is a free tool. You can use it. So we'll go. How we go with this proportion is, first, what data to collect, and then data hiding techniques, how to hide the data or how to extract the hidden data, then validating the forensic data, and then if the data is in a remote system, for suppose it is a local area network, and from server you are working, you have to take the data from a client. It's called as remote acquisition. Remote here is not confined only to wide area network, even local area network. When you are not on the host system, it is called as remote acquisition. So it's a generic word. Next, how to extract data from virtual machines. We'll have detailed discussion of virtual machines also in the 5th unit. Next, network forensics. If you are working on the network, how do you work about it? Right now, we'll take first one, what data to collect. Just I click here, I get expansion of this one. Now, what data to collect? Everything that is on the this case to be investigated, which means that as an investigator, you will have to find the data, gigabytes and gigabytes of data, investigate, and then you have to collect the required data. Now, what happens? The data to be collected could be relevant to the file investigation, may not be relevant to the investigation. If it is not relevant, then what you have to do is mark it as processed data and keep it aside. You need not worry about that. If you are sure that this data is not at all relevant to the investigation that you have at hand, you need not worry about data. Just mark it as processed and keep it aside. But make note of it in your investigation diary. It is mandatory. Now the second case arises. It is relevant to the investigation. Right? It depends on the nature of investigation and amount of data to be processed. The second one, documenting and recording every request is essential. Analyze evidence exhaustively is the third step. So when the data is related to investigation, nature of investigation confirms that it is relevant. The first step is amount of data to be collected is decided. We'll go here now. So nature of investigation depends on nature of investigation. What is the type of investigation that we are seeing here? We'll see it. Now, the investigation could be a criminal investigation pertaining to criminal case. That means a bank robbery or threatening. It could be civil investigation. If it is a civil investigation, that means pertaining to land grabbing, right? Or it could be a private case where a company wants investigation to be done. It is a corporate investigation. Now we'll see each one of them. Suppose it is criminal investigation. The first thing that we need to understand is that investigation is limited to search warrant. No investigation starts, as I said, no investigation starts without the permission from court. Court has to give search warrant. So the investigator will have to work with the police agency to seek search warrant for the investigation purposes. Now, court does not give a generic investigation. It does not give the broad scope of search whatever you want. You will have to mention very clearly what is that you want to search, what is the case about. The judge should be convinced of the investigation process, and the investigation will be confined only to that part. Suppose someone wants to arrest, police wants to arrest you, you cannot go to court. Please give me permission for not being arrested. Blanket permission is not given. You have to mention very specifically in which case you are going to be arrested. Then only you can seek for anticipatory bail. There is no generic permission from the court. Similarly, in a criminal investigation here, this investigation is limited to search warrant. So you have search warrant on your side, you are checking the data. Now, as I said, take the data, compare with the investigation process. Is it relevant to the case? If it is not, throw it aside. keep it aside, mark it as read, mark it as investigated, then take the next item. Now you find there are three types of possibilities. First one is not relevant. Throw it aside, keep it aside, saying that it is marked, it is investigated, it is checked already. It's not necessary. Second one, it is relevant to the case. That means you find extra item relevant to the case, but you don't have search warrant. Then what should you do? Then what should you do? What you should do, stop investigation, inform the company which has engaged your services, that is the requester, and then along with the requester, approach the court, approach the police, approach the court to increase the scope of investigation. Seek fresh warrant, and then come back and start proceeding with the case. Right? These are the two possibilities, three possibilities. Not relevant, keep it aside. Relevant, but not within the scope of search warrant. Go to the court, get search warrant extended, and then investigate. Now, when it is perfectly relevant to the case, mark it as very important and reserve it aside. Now, when we come to civil investigation, again, in civil investigations also, the investigator is required to do what is told by the court. This is called as discovery of data. That means whether the document is forged or whether the timeline is matching or only to that extent. Now, in that case also, you will have to gather enough evidence, go back to the court, and ask for more data. Discovery tool or empower you with more info. The third one, agencies, private investigations, which are largely called as corporate investigations. It is also called as corporate espionage. Corporate espionage. Am I clear? Is the voice okay now? Is the voice okay? Someone help me. Fine. Excellent, Datta. We'll proceed. Excellent. No problem. Right. Thank you, Swati. We'll proceed. Now, coming to the civil cases, as I said, discovery is to be seen. Discovery means what is the scope of discovery to be done? What is the extent of discovery to be done? If there is more, then go back to the court, get the work done. Extend your scope of work. Now, the third entity is corporate investigations, which is also called as corporate espionage. For example, in order to kill competition, what could a company do is, take for example, a hypothetical case of beverages, cold drinks. Pepsi wants to kill the market of thumbs up. What does it do is, gather thumbs up bottles from outsourcing, or take the thumbs up branded bottles, fill with spurious cold drink and release in the market. Who is going to get the bad name here? Thumbs up is going to get the problem. What is being done here? In order to kill the competition, what Pepsi is resorting to is sending their own employees or sending their own representatives into the company so that incriminating data can be stolen and given. This is called as corporate. These are some examples. I have only taken hypothetical examples to make you understand. But as an investigator, you should be aware that these things also should be happening. Right? So you will have to have a broader approach to the case rather than narrowing down. Investigation process is always like a funnel. It is very broad at the top, and you will get a lot of data, and most of it is scrap only. So you will have to be highly attentive in identifying, pinpointing the exact data that is required for investigation purposes. Now, in case of corporate investigations, largely the investigation process is decided by the company policy. And what does the company need? What does the company need? The company needs who used their data and what was the purpose of using, and they want it to be done to the fullest extent. Most of the times in private investigations, in private companies related investigations, the action is left to the management only. And since it is a closed domain, unlike criminal investigation, civil investigation, public domain investigations, or where police is involved, in private investigations, the scope is very small and it is very easy because the company wants the data. Whatever you ask, they are ready to provide the data for you. So it is fairly easy and simple. Resources are also available. All the resources are under control of the company. Compare this with a match fixing case which happened somewhere in Delhi and a player in Hyderabad is involved. Now the Delhi police and Hyderabad police and courts in Hyderabad, Delhi have to be there. Police from Delhi, they cannot come directly to the Hyderabad police and ask for it. They have to go to Delhi court, seek permission, and then come to seek order, and then come to Hyderabad, approach the police through the court order. So there is a lot of complication. The structure is very complex here. Unlike that, in a corporate case, all the resources are in the control of the company. They will give you company data. Whatever you ask, you have access to. And it is fairly simple and easy. And what is the scope of punishment? Mostly, companies do not want complicated procedures. Suppose someone has indulged in stealing the data. The best thing that they do is they want to cut the tail easily and close the case then and there itself. Unless it is too grave a case, they don't want to go into the lafda of law and order, police, court. They don't have that much time. They have their own business too. Now, what happens in this case? What can come? Remember, this word is very important, very critical word, very, very, very critical word. I'm coming to this critical word now, right? What happens? Suppose you are investigating. Now, you company gives complaint against one person. I have doubt on this person. Please check this. Now, what happens? This person is a friend of, he is an accomplice. Someone has helped in IT department, say in ERTP department or IT cell. Someone has helped in the finance department. Complaint is on finance department fellow, and in the investigation, it is found out that IT fellow is also there. Now, what is happening? The scope of investigation has expanded from just finance to IT department also. It could go to marketing department also. Then what is happening? What we say is the investigation process is creeping. Scope of the investigation is increasing. So put together, we call this as scope creep, a very important word. So what is scope creep? Scope creep is the process where, or is a situation where the investigation extends beyond what is required to be done, and complete analysis cannot be done unless the scope is extended. Most of the times, corporate investigations corporates want the case to be completed in whole, in one stretch. So scope creep is a common process in corporate investigations, but that doesn't mean that this word is not applicable for the other investigations. Scope creep is always there in every case. So now what is the effect of this one? Scope creep increases time and effort. Dear friends, I will share this mind map image with you. I am repeating, I will share with you people so that your preparation will be very simple. When you go through that Word document, you may find it verbose because it is very detailed in nature. This will give you immediate points to score right answers well also. Fine. Now we'll go to the second aspect of it. I'm closing this part. Any doubts so far? Any doubts so far, dear? It's like a fairly simple subject. The only thing needed is be familiar with certain terminologies. You will score very well. And you have to use those words. It will be very easy. Now, all this put together, what we say is to all this. So far, we have been discussing from the point of view of investigator and the grieved company. But all this is going to be against a person who has purportedly committed the crime. Suppose Desai has committed a crime and you are the owner of the company or you are the investigating officer, you have investigated against me. But always in judiciary system, no one is a culprit unless crime is proved. So I am innocent. As I should be given fair chance. I should be given fair chance to defend my case. So defense counsel has more access to data than the investigator. Now what my defense counsel means? My lawyer. What my lawyer will do is he will try to cut every evidence to its shortcom to prove that I am not involved in that. So every evidence presented at the court of law will be questioned by the defense lawyer. Defense lawyers will have more access to the data. So when you investigate in all these cases, when you investigate, you should work as a defense lawyer. It is like playing chess. When in all the games, you play your game to win, whether it is cricket or football. You see in cricket, as long as your score rate is much higher, you are on the safe footing to win the game. And you have low score, you use your bowlers to win the game. So you are playing your game. Similarly in football, you are scoring your goals. But in case of chess, you never play your game, you play your opponent's game. Right? There are certain games where you don't play your game, you play others' game. So you will envision or you will visualize what fellow would do. If I were in a position, what I do. So it is the opponent's play. Similarly, in investigation process also, as the popular saying goes, if you want to catch a thief, think like a thief. So as an investigator, if you want to investigate something, investigate as a defense lawyer. That means you become your own critic. So gathering evidence should be foolproof, concrete, undeniable in the court of law. Otherwise, it is very difficult. More so because it is IT related activity. And IT related activities are laws are being made, but the crime rate is much above. The crime rate is much above the law. Law is trying to catch up with this. So all these you should keep in mind. Keep in mind that defense counsel will question you. Defense counsel will question you. So that's it. Now we'll come to this point. Second one, what is the next step you have to take? Document and record every request needed for justifying any delay in investigation. Now what has happened? You have gone for investigation. You thought that it would take 1 month time, but in the process you have identified additional data to investigate. Now what is happening? The scope creep is entering into picture here. Scope creep is occurring. Because of scope creep, your effort has to increase. Obviously that I will increase. First of all, court will ask the question. Remember, the investigators are asked a question first, not the accused, right? First, they will ensure that you have followed all the steps properly. So, documenting everything, an investigator has to maintain the diary. Every incident is to be noted in the diary. On a particular day of investigation, if manager is not there, whoever on from the company side, whoever in the investigation process, whoever the witness is also to be mentioned, very micro level. You cannot miss one single point. Right. What is it for? Needed for justifying any delay. As I said, scope creep delays. For example, in case of disproportionate assets of one of the leaders, The court questioned the police. Why is it so delayed? Why are you taking so much time? All must be completed within this time. So inordinate delay can be not acceptable to the court of law. From that point of view, you will have to justify why you take more time. Next, analyze the evidence. The next step, having convinced with this aspect, fine. Analyze the data exhaustively. So analyzing evidence exhaustively, that means you put a thorough question. Will this data, will this evidence stand in the court of law? Will this evidence be written off by the court of law? Will judge consider it? Will the defense lawyer counter it effectively? You have, as I said, foolproof evidence. Right? Now, defense may use improperly investigated evidence to save the accused. So your mistake, your small mistake can cause a lot of problem. For example, on a day, it is a holiday, you have gone for investigation, it may not be accepted at the court of law because there is no one else. And you take police for investigation, our law system, legal system says police evidence is not acceptable unless it is very extraordinary conditions, because police is part of the legal system only. They're part of law and law enforcement. So there has to be a neutral, very minute level. So this is about. So what did we learn in the what data to collect so far? We thought, we understood that the case can be, the data can be relevant to the case or irrelevant to the case. So if it is totally convinced by the investigator that data is irrelevant, mark it as investigated, keep it aside. Refer back to the flow chart once I complete the class, right? The next one, it could be relevant. Then it could fall into three categories. Is it private investigation, public investigation? If it is private investigation, simple matter will be simpler and easier, fairly simple. All the data is available in the ownership of the data is with the company. Company can help you and you can go ahead with the investigation. But you have to be aware of scope creep. Next, if it is a public case, it could be a criminal case or it could be a civil case. If it is criminal case, then you will have to see the search warrant. If the data is not falling in the search warrant, but you feel it is incriminating, very essential for the case purposes, go back to the court, inform the client, go back to the court, get scope of the search warrant extended. Similar approach in civil case, discovery of the fraud is, it is limited to discovery of fraud. It's not a criminal case as far as, but when it's data manipulation, now civil case falls into criminal case. So one thing you have to understand is that there is nothing called civil case or criminal case. For example, when I encroach into your plot and put my flag there, this land belongs to Desai, you cannot say it as a criminal case. You cannot, there is no cheating here. I have just grabbed your land. It's a land grabbing case. It is a civil case. When you come to me to claim back your plot, and there is a ruffle between you and me, you hit me, you will be booked for a criminal case. If I hit you, manhandle you, then it becomes a criminal case. And similarly, a criminal case, purported criminal case, can turn into civil case also. That's why exhaustive investigation of the data is required. Exhaustive analysis of the data is required. It should fit the word called evidence. Then only it is acceptable. Fine. Now we'll go to next topic. Data hiding techniques. I have given some important points here. When you take this flow chart, there are 3 lines here, which means that I have put some text data here. For example, important points I have put for what data to collect. What you will be learning in the subsequent points will be mentioned here. Let me show you this way. Suppose I click on this one. Now there are important points. First question, is it information? Is enough information available? We saw through flow chart. Next, list the extracted data from various points of data storages. We discussed about cache memory, RAM, registers, hard disk, floppy drive, right? Like that. Next, filtering. See the extracted data in order of possible relevance to the case and prioritize. This we have discussed. So these are the important points. Similarly, here, when I come here, open this, what you will be seeing here? Changing or manipulating a file to conceal information. So what is the possibility? Who will do this? The accused will do it. What is data hiding? Data may be, see, what we have discussed so far is that we assume that the table data is available for access purposes and we are investigation, but it may not be the case. The other fellow is very intelligent. He has hidden the data. How can data be hidden? There are various techniques. So what we'll be seeing is various techniques in which form the data can be hidden. There are 20 different ways. There is the subtree is 20. Are you able to see number 20 here? Are you able to see 20 attached to data hiding techniques? Yes, yes. Okay, fine. 20. Now I click on this one. It will expand. See, we have completed this part. We are coming to this part now. Let me highlight on this part. First one, where is the data hidden? Hiding in the partition. That means when you purchase, all of you know that when hard disk is purchased, it is partitioned into various logical partition. It is not physical hard disk, it is logical partition. Say C is bootable, D is for applications, E is for, you make so many partitions. These are called logical partitions. Now, what can happen is that I will partition the disk at the time of formatting, right? I will partition the data. I will partition the hard disk. In one of the partitions, I will hide my data and then hide the partition itself. Now what is happening? That partition will not be seen in the utilities. There are so many utilities like Norton Disk Edit, gedit, Partition Magic, System Commander, Linux Grub, Grand Unified Bootloader, Grub. Right? Now you remember, Grub is in our college laboratory. Right? We are using a variant of Unix there, Ubuntu. But on the same system, Windows is also loaded. Now, when you switch on the system, this grub is appearing to give you options. So grub is basically mentioned to maintain various operating systems that you have loaded in the system. And it also gives information about the location of the bootloader. That means booting sequence. We'll study about this in 5th unit, but not Linux. In the context of Windows and DOS, we will study. So this grub is actually a facility that is given to the user to choose between the operating system, and that itself can be used to hide the partitions. So partition gap introduced by operating systems like Windows. What happens is that in Windows, what you do is that you can partition the hard disk. Say 500 GB hard disk is there. 100 GB you put for C, 50 GB you put for D, 50 GB, 30 GB for D, 20 GB you don't define it at all. That is, it is unpartitioned. Now that part will not be seen here, and that is called as partition gap. That partition gap will not be seen with normal. You need special use. Now what is happening? Data can be hidden there. So now as an investigator, you should have information, some basic knowledge. You should be having knowledge about what is a hard disk and what is its size. When you see a new hard disk, maybe you remember, probably you have studied an IT workshop also. When you purchase a new hard disk, on its specifications are given. Seagate, Winchester, company's name is given, its barcode number is given, its capacity is given. its cylinders, heads, tracks are given. The size of the hard disk is number of cylinders into number of heads into number of tracks. It is called as CHT. We'll see more of this in fifth unit. Multiply all this, that will be the total size hard disk. Now, certain hard disks are given. For example, Seagate gives ST144E, could be of 40 GB hard disk. So this ID of hard disk mentions the capacity of the hard disk also. It's not possible to remember every hard disk with the specification or its ID number and gauge. It's good if you remember. Over a period of time, you will start remembering them. As you gain experience as an investigator, you will start remembering them. But pressure, it may not be possible. Now, what is the way out? On the same disk, on the same disk, as I said, number of cylinders, number of heads, and number of tracks are given. Multiply all these, you will get the total size of the hard disk. So you should keep in that mind. When you go for seeing the partitions, when you go with file manager, see this, it is given 20 GB of 100 GB is free. So is that actually 100 GB? You will not be able to see with naked eye or with Windows Manager. You will have to have special tools. So what we say is that account for all the space at the time of investigation. See whether a partition is hidden using some tool. You will also be using any of these tools, or there are specialized tools for investigation, for example, access data, FTK. All these are very specialized tools which overcome all these deficiencies. They do the job for you. So first thing is you will have to increase, right? This is a hanging box belonging to first one. So ignore this one here. When we expand, this will come here, no problem, right? So partition hiding. Now, when you take a tool, you should account for total disk space as mentioned by the manufacturer. Compare this with what data is visible, data is available, and then find out whether that data is. Now, suppose I have hidden the partition, then how do you do that? Say I have used Norton disk editor. With the disk editor, I have hidden disk D, logical disk D. Now, when you give dir or when you go to Windows Manager normally, you will see only C and E, but not D. You may be left to the imagination, there are only two partitions. So the hard disk size is smaller. 100 GB is missing. It is 300 GB hard disk, only 200 are there C and E, where is another 100, but you will not be able to see with Windows File Manager. Okay, then what do? You will have to use one of the tools, and the tool will show the hidden partition. Now you will have to do the same thing what the culprit has done. You will have to open with partition and select, activate it, and then extract the data. So you see, you are doing more job than the culprit. You have to visualize the mind of the culprit or the criminal and then do that. It requires a lot of patience. See, criminal investigations require a lot of patience apart from smartness. It's not intelligence. Smartness is required. Right? Now, we'll go to the next one. Changing the file extension. Is it possible to do that? So you will have to know, you will have to remember what are the extension names given. For example, in C, what is the extension? What is the extension for C files? What is the extension? .c. Excellent. If it is C++, CPP. If it is .java, Java. If it is HTML, remember there are two for HTML. No, Correct. It is partially correct answer. There are two, HTM and HTML. Excellent. Excellent, Swati. There are two extensions possible. Now what I do is, you have created a file with swati.html. What I do is I rename it. It's a very simple process, right? I rename it as swati.doc or swati.jpg. Will I be able to open that file? Yes, Jay, we can go. Excellent. We can go and see it. But to access it, we have to undo what the investigator has done. That's where our focus is. Right? We can see the partitions with the disk partition managers. These are all the tools. Disk manager is there, gdisk is there. All this will help you see the partition. But if you want to extract the data, you will have to do the same process what the investigator has done. That's why. So our focus is not whether we can see it or not. Our focus is on getting the data for case purposes. So you will have to undo what that fellow has done and then extract the data. Now coming back to our topic. Say a file is created by swati.html, her web page. I rename it as swati.jpg. Will I be able to open it with Notepad? I will not be. In all probability, I will not be, because it is unknown file type. Similarly, when I remove extension .docx or .doc.xml and rename it some other extension, doesn't matter. I don't rename, I don't give extension name, then I will not be able to open with that application. So Word file, in spite of it being Word file, it will not be able to, I will not be able to open it. So this is another technique, very popular technique that is used by the perpetrators of crime. Now what should I do? How do I know which type of file is that? Suppose it is a Word file. Suppose it is a Word file. I think that is an Excel file. I try to open it with Excel file. Now what I have done? I have not only done wrong thing, but I also changed the attributes of that file. I lose evidence. So I should be very careful here. There is a tool called Hex Editor. There are automated tools and crude tools like even debug in DOS is also a command which does not cause damage to the file. Open the file with the debug. The first 3 characters or 4 characters will tell what type of file is that. The first 4 characters will tell what type of file is that. Open with that application, you'll be able to do that. WinHex is an editor, is downloadable, right? If you want to practice something here on that, as time pass, as an entertainment, then download WinHex editor. WinHex editor, which is a free tool, and open your resume file, see what is there, rename it and see it. You will be renaming a DOS prompt, but it will not get changed in the original file, metadata file. It will be Word file only. So this is another way. So what is your approach here? You will have to, what is your approach here? You will have to, now I am adding one branch to this one. See, I am adding, there are 2 ways. I want to give some small notes here. So what I do here, I click here, I click on this note. Are you able to see this note here? Click on this note. I will get this box opening. Fine. What I will do is use text editors to find the actual application with which the file was created. And this you can also add your notes for this. It's very simple. I repeat, if you want to add something notes here, I'll take another one. You want to add notes here, click on this, the box will appear, it is highlighted, it select now, go back to the top there is something called note. Click on this note, note box will appear. You can highlight them also, bold, italic, bulleting also can be done. As simple as that. Now, so the next one, set files to hidden. The next action that can be taken is set files to hidden. Here extension is, here partition is hidden, here each file is hidden. So what are the hidden file? H for hidden. So attribute is the command that is. So attributes to the file are hidden. That means they are archived, they are hidden, they are read only. So check them. If they are not visible, you check them also. Hidden files are not. In Windows File Manager, in View menu, you go to View, show hidden files also. There also you can set. There are so many ways to do that. Next, another most popular technique that is used, more technical one is used is bit shifting. So what is the ASCII value of A? It is 65 decimal or 41 hexadecimal. So write in binary hexadecimal. What you do is make the first bit, last bit and first bit. Make MSB or LSB, or write a program in your own way to change certain bytes randomly through a software tool and undo it. So what are you doing actually is jumbling. Bits are jumbled and then stored. Bits are jumbled and data is stored. So with normal eye, it will not be possible for reading the data unless undo is done. So what can be done here? We'll see points, important points here. See, low-level encryption developed by home users who learn programming. Normally, this approach is done by programmers. And that too, who can work at the machine level, not assembly level, machine level programmer, low-level programmers, right? Low-level programmers use this kind of technique to hide their data. After the alter the order of binary data at byte level. For each byte it is done, not entire file. So each byte is taken. Suppose the word size in the operating system is 32 bits will not be swapped. It will swapped. It will be swapped in 4 bytes block. Each byte is jumbled and then stored back. Right. So within byte system it is done. Next, alteration done through assembler or macro. As I said, you can write a since you are a programmer, low-level programmer, you write a macro, a routine, or a tool. User tools are also available. This makes the work of analysis difficult for the programmer, investigator. But this should be investigator, not programmer. Fine. And knowledge of assembly language programming, Visual Basic, VC++, Perl is useful to handle this type of evidence. Now you see that an investigator has to be a programmer also. Unless he knows programming, he will not be able to do justice to his job. Bit shifting changes data from readable code to data that looks like binary. Now what has happened in the case of example that I have taken, 41 has become something else now. It is no more A, it's a junk character. We are given feeling that there is no data, there is something junk. So it's a problem, right? Like binary, like executable code. It looks like executable, but it's not a data actually because its ASCII value has changed. So this is how. Now, how do you find whether it is bit shifting or not? How do you find it? Again, as I said, your intuition, your experience, your wisdom will help you for probabilistic. It is based on English only. So probabilistic approaches are to be taken. The most frequently, as you have studied in cryptography, the highest probability alphabet is E. Check for that. Next, followed by T. Check for that. When you get these two, probably it becomes similar. I don't say it is the easiest process. It becomes handy to you. Right? Next, the next approach is encrypting, cryptography. Now here what is happening? There can be cryptography can be in two forms. You have already studied network security and cryptography, public key or private key. Either case, but it's not easy if it is encrypted application. Complex schemes are used, right? And the technique is called as key escrow. That means using key for passphrase is used, key is used. So the two important words that you come across is key escrow and passphrase, and every time new password. Investigating these types of activities is next to impossible. You have to have help from the system only, from the person only, right? So now, what is the investigation approach for encryption? We'll see the points here. Use key escrow approach to extract evidence. You can go for brute force. See, if you take DES for example, it is a 56-bit key. Now, 56-bit key for permutation of every, since it is zeros and ones only, one of the combination is the key for that one. It's not easy to do actually, but with high computation power, it has become easier in a distributed computing. Remember, DES was developed in 1.5 years time by IBM, but it was broken in 1 month time by somebody else. Parallel computing power has made it easy. So use password recovery tools if provided by the vendor. So the software tools have password breaking tools. They depend on the birthday attacks, dictionary attacks. So try to do with them. Most of the time, what happens is that the passwords used by the public are very common in nature, like their pet's name, their girlfriend name, boyfriend name, mother's name, father's name, what they are called at home, Chinna, Chintu, kind of thing. So it's not that difficult to guess password. At the same time, it's not very easy. Fine. Insist and persuade the suspect to reveal the password. Insist on it. Because if you try to crack the password without knowing it, you may cause damage to the data, metadata. That should be avoided. So whenever it is password protected or the encrypted file, the investigation approach is to catch hold of the fellow who created the password and try to get. Current schemes could become obsolete once quantum computing is developed. Quantum computing gives absolute level of security, and it becomes unbreakable, right? And safety will be much higher. Of course, there is time for that. Then store data in slack memory space. What is this slack memory space? For now, we remember it is leftover memory used by earlier program, or a part of memory overwritten used by earlier program, a part of memory overwritten by current program in the memory erstwhile occupied by the previous program. Data belonging to previous program, some part is left out there, and that is called as slack memory. We'll see this more of this. We'll have more discussion about this one in the 5th unit. Don't worry. Mark good sectors or bad sectors. Now this is another. For example, with the Norton disk editor, you can open the disk editor tool, you can mark some sectors as bad. Now what I do is I store my data in these sectors selectively. I need to be expert in that, right? I store in certain pockets of memory my data and mark them as bad. Operating system will never open it. Operating system will not go through the bad sectors. So deliberately, I am marking good sector as a bad sector. On the bad sectors, I have data. Now, what should you do? How do you find out where I have? You can see that it is equivalent to finding a needle on the sea ocean that you have dropped. Still, you have to be patient. A lot of patience is required. Not to create a fear, there are enough tools, but in spite of tools, it is you who has to do all this. We have to do all this. That's very important. Now, as an investigator, what I can do is I use Norton disk editor by trial and error method. I go mark the good sectors, bad sectors as good sectors, and try to extract the data from there. I need to be very selectively probabilistic in that. I need to have knowledge about in which memory location what data is going to be stored. For example, in first 640 KB in memory, nobody can write anything. It is operating system's protection mode, supervisory mode, monitoring mode, control mode. Nobody can write it. So as an investigator, I need not touch that 640 KB. Next to 384 KB is for device drivers. Nobody can write it. A few people can write it with virus programs and something like that. So the port address will give indication. I need to have at least basic knowledge about where each device is, device driver's program, device driver is stored in the memory location. For example, for mouse, which is a port address, for serial port, which is a port address, which is a IRQ, that knowledge we have to have. Fine. And the last approach is steganography. What is the difference between cryptography and steganography? In cryptography, scrambled data is seen even for an ordinary person. It is possible to imagine something is happening. But in case of steganography, it is not. There is a large text called as carrier in which you have stored certain small pockets of data here and there. The file size does not increase. And by merely looking at it, you cannot, naked eye cannot differentiate whether this carrier contains hidden data or not. Steganography is the technique of hiding. It is older technology than cryptography. It was used in World War I. Look for steganography. Now, how do you investigate whether this particular image contains hidden data or not? For example, it could be an image of your favorite cricket player, but in that you have stored, someone has stored the data, the investigator has stored. I mean, not you as an investigator. Suppose on my computer, you are investigating. I am a fan of Virat Kohli or Amitabh Bachchan or Aishwarya Rai or Rakul Singh. In that I have hidden data. How do you get to know it? There is no direct way of knowing. The best way is to find search for steganography tools on my computer. So what is the investigation approach? Look for steganography tools on the suspect computer. Locate the recent use of steganography tool. Not just locate, not just see the steganography tools. Right click on them when it was last used. That can give hint to you. So you have a date and timestamp. Based on that timestamp, come to the directory, check for files which were changed recently. Match the date and time. You have an indication here. Look for identical files with both BMP and JPG extension. There is another way. Normally, steganography tools, BMP is the most basic, PNG, BNP. If you find two files, primary name same, but with different extensions, one with BMP, another with JPEG or PNG or TIFF format, then there are bright chances that a steganography tool was used, because it is not possible directly converting into another file, right? So that is another way. Next, generate a list of all files with the date and time equal to after the last modified date of steganography. As I said, match this. Now you are able to realize that it takes a lot of patience. So that's about now. So that's about data hiding techniques. What did we learn here? There are various methods of data hiding that can be done by the perpetrator of the crime. It could be starting from hiding the partition to changing the file extension or set file to hidden. It's the simplest. Bit shifting, more technical. What is happening? First bit becomes last bit becomes first bit, or there could be a mathematics formula. For example, x cube plus 1 mod 8 is done. X cube plus 1, where x is the bit position. So first bit, what does first bit become? X cube plus 1. First bit is position is 0. So 0 plus 1, 0 cube is 0, 0 plus 1, it is in mod 8. It is in its position. Like that. Bit shifting, encrypting, cryptography tools used here to have the support of the person who encrypted the files. Experimenting is a costly here. Password protection, of course, there are so many tools that are available for password protection. And as I said, most of the passwords based on dictionary or birthday attack. What is this birthday attack? Simply understood, there are only 365 days. Guessing your birthday is an attack. There are only 365 days. There are about 20 crore populations, 20 crore people born every year in our country. So 20 crore must be mapped onto 365. Though the probability looks very high, it's not very difficult. Right? And the data can be stored in slack memory space also. Slack memory space. We'll discuss more about in the fifth unit. And mark good sectors as bad sector. This requires utility, not unutility. Steganography is another approach. For steganography, what you do is look for steganographic applications on the system. Look for when they were modified last and match that with the data files that were modified, image files or text files. There could be text steganography and image steganography also, both are there. Next, find for identical files with the different extensions. That will also be an indicator to the steganography tools present in the system. What's the time now? Fine. We'll close up in another 15 minutes. We'll take another topic. Is that okay? Fine. Very good. So we'll go to the next, validating forensic data. Now, as I said, when you collect the data, it's not mere collection of data. You have to ensure that the data is not corrupted, either earlier or by you also. So ensuring that the right data is used for investigation purposes is the technique here. We'll see. Now, again, I'm clicking on this one. It is the most critical activity. As I said, you could become criminal if you don't follow procedures properly. Police becomes thief now. So that's very dangerous proposition you have to ensure. What is validating is ensure integrity of data for admissibility in the court of law. Court should accept it. Now, how do you ensure integrity? You have studied data integration, data integrity in computer networks. It starts from parity check onwards. It goes to CRC. It goes to some other technique. But at the higher level, in cryptography, you have studied about tools MD5, that is message digest algorithms, SHA-1, which are most popular, acceptable. Now, important point we have to remember for investigation purposes is that you cannot use any tool for integrity purposes. You should not use. You should use only that are approved by the court of law. So the important point here is that you should not be using another tool, some other tool. Suppose Bluefish is there, that also gives certain kind of authenticity, right? Apart from encryption. If Bluetooth is not approved, you are not supposed to use it. When you use it, you shall have to compare it with MD5 SHA-1, which is approved by the court of law. So standard approved tools are to be used. The very important thing that you have to understand is that what are the standard tools available in the market for using purposes is another one. You cannot use whatever your choice is. There is no love marriage here, only arranged marriage. You have to love the arranged one. And even if you use someone, even if you use some other tool, that tool has to be equivalent to, should be doing all the activities that is done by MD5 or SHA-1. Right? So that's very essential. Now, hashing is used for ensuring integrity. As I said, MD5 SHA-1. There are other standard validating tools which are approved by the court of law. For example, ProDiscover, Xways, Forensics, FTK, NCase. All these are standard tools, and they are not free of cost available. They are commercial tools available. Moreover, to purchase them, you have to have permission from the police department, law enforcement, you cannot just purchase. The moment you go into hacking, you are tracked. Police will land in your house. So you will have to do this exercise on your standalone computer, not on internet. First, try your luck at home level. Check your computer first of all. Then you go with other ones under the supervision of an approved licensed investigator. Right? Then hexadecimal editors are also used. As I said, WinHex is a tool. You can, it is freely downloaded. We can work on your, if time permits, if I have a chance, if when you are interested, I will show rudimentarily how hexadecimal editors will work with an example also. Fine. Next. Now we'll come to the next part. So what is validating data? Ensuring that integrity of data is not lost. So the first job you have to do is when you collect the data, extract the data, and then identify the data. After identifying, the first thing that is to be done is create hash of that using a standard algorithm. And along with hash, preserve the data. Make a copy of it. Whenever you use the data, create, once again, compare the hash with already stored hash. If they are okay, your data has not changed. The same technique that is used in MD5 algorithm or authentication algorithms that you have studied in network security. Fine. So that's about Hex editor is a more rudimentary. You need more knowledge on that. You need more knowledge on that. So Hex editor, you will have to be, you are doing what tool is doing, so you have to be more experienced in that. So we'll go to the next one. Remote acquisition. As I said, when you are not on the host system against which a complaint is there, you are taking the data from some other position, some other location, maybe in the same premises, other location, maybe in the some other location, geographically you are away. Then in that case, the need for requisition, remote acquisition comes here. Second point and more important point. Suppose you have received a complaint that one computer is compromised. It is in the network. So your immediate suspicion goes, what other computers are? Which other computers are actually compromised? So to know that, you need to go with remote acquisition. Second point. Third point, you want to catch the culprit live. You want to do what are his intentions, not just compromising the system. In that case also you go with remote acquisition. Travel is not possible. Suppose it is hilly terrain where the computer is there, it may not be possible. So you will go with remote acquisition. And remote acquisition can be online or offline depending upon the geographical location. We'll see some important format here. Deals with acquisition of data from a computer or digital device. I have used a more generic word here, digital device. It could be a PDA, it could be a mobile phone, it could be iPad, it could be any digital device, IoT device. While physically not in the vicinity of the device. When you are not in the physical vicinity, when you are not near the device, you go for remote acquisition. Next, it's handy when investigator needs to image the drive of a computer far away from his location. You are far away. You are not able to travel. For example, lockdown. You are not able to travel. What do? Then you go with network-based activity. When you are far away from the location, it will be useful. And you don't want the suspect to be aware of what you are doing hidden behind the screen. You do. Now what happens when you go, what is the advantage of this one is that you are able to track the culprit, you are able to track the suspect, what are his intentions, you want to know. Fine. The advantage of this one is that you are not visible. Second point, lot of travel time is saved, money is saved, time is also saved. That's the advantage. So many tools are available for remote acquisition but are designed to be system specific. That means there is no generic tool. If your computer is fat system, then only fat based tools can be used. Other tools can damage your data. If it is NTFS, then you go with NTFS. If it is Linux, if it is HTFS, then if it is high performance file system like PS/2 operating system used by IBM PS/2 computers, then PS/2. If it is Android, Android specific, iOS specific, Mac specific tools are available. And what they do is they actually create raw format image files. You can create two ways. One is raw format. Raw format is actually taking bit by bit copy of the hard disk completely. That is suggested because integrity is not lost. Investigation gives a lot of flexibility, but it is tough job. The second one is you can segment. You can take the segment could be a file or a cluster or a block or a folder or a subfolder or a partition or entire disk. So here segmenting means it can start with at the lowest level a file. Sorry, lower than that a cluster. Above that a block, above that a file, above that a set of files, above that a folder, above that a partition. So it can be done that way also. Raw format is entire disk one to one. For example, DOS copy, disk copy is there, DOS command. It is an internal command. Disk copy is there. Sorry, disk copy is an external command. It needs a program. It is a utility program. Disk copy makes copy of one disk to another disk, identical disks. It is largely used for floppy disks, which are now obsolete. Disk copy cannot be used for hard disk. There is X copy for that. X copy /V is an option. Copy /V is an option that you use. X copy /V is an option. What is it is? It is a DOS command to copy contents of one hard disk to another hard disk. Again, it has to be identical hard disk. You cannot copy from Seagate to Winchester. That and the things have to be since CHT formula has to be identical. Then only copying is possible. So what they do is basically they are actually raw copy, raw format copiers. And to use these tools, it's best to have computers connected to the same local hub or router with minimal network traffic. So suppose the suspect computer is on one network with one router, try to be in that network only so that data traffic is reduced. Other routers are not disturbed. From security point of view also, data is in a localized format. So that's about remote acquisition. Fine. So shall we stop here? Network topics is network forensics is a bigger copy. Shall we stop here? Okay, fine recap, small recap of what we have studied today is about analysis and validation. We have studied two flow charts. With the help of those flow charts, we try to understand. We studied about what data to collect. We found out that it depends on the nature of the case, criminal, civil, or corporate, private, local case. And document and recording is very essential. Then we studied about various data hiding techniques from simple renaming of file to highest level of partition hiding, bit shifting, other techniques. Next, validating. We understood that integrity is not to be lost at any cost. And then we'll take up the remaining two topics, virtual machines and network forensics, tomorrow. Fine. I'll share this file once this tomorrow. Join us tomorrow again. I'll share with you. I'll share with you the login details tomorrow. Right. Bye. Thank you.